The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered as Dr. Elena Marquez stumbled into the break room, her hands trembling, her white coat stained with the day's chaos. She just lost a paciente young mother, barely older than herself, whose heart gave out despite Elena's desperate efforts in the ER. The weight of failure clung to her like damp cloth, suffocating. Elena sank into a chair, her dark hair falling loose from its bun, and stared at the coffee machine humming in the corner. It was 2 a.m. and Mercy General Hospital in the small town of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, felt like a ghost town. She was 32, a resident doctor in her final year. Yet tonight she felt like a fraud. Her hands, trained to save lives, had failed her. The door creaked open and Riley Carter stepped in, her work boots leaving faint mud tracks on the linoleum. At 28, Riley was the town's go-to plumber, known for fixing leaks at odd hours with a disarming grin. Her short blonde hair was tousled, her plaid shirt rolled up to reveal forearms smudged with grease. She'd been called in to fix a burst pipe in the hospital's basement, a job that had kept her up past midnight. "Hey, Doc," Riley said, her voice soft but carrying a warmth that cut through the sterile air. "Rough night." Elena looked up, startled. She'd seen Riley around town fixing pipes at the diner, joking with locals, but they'd never spoken. "You could say that," Elena muttered, her voice raw. "What's your excuse for being here at this hour?" Riley shrugged, leaning against the counter. "Pipes don't care about sleep schedules. Neither does this place, apparently." She nodded toward the coffee machine. "Mind if I steal a cup? Been wrestling with a rusty valve all night." Elena managed a faint smile. "Go for it. It's the only thing keeping me upright." As Riley poured herself a cup, Elena noticed the way her hands moved, steady, deliberate, like she could fix anything, not just pipes. There was something grounding about her presence, a contrast to the chaos in Elena's head. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the hospital fading into the background. "You look like you're carrying the world," Riley said, her blue eyes studying Elena with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Wanna talk about it?" Elena hesitated. She wasn't one to open up, especially not to a stranger. Her life was a carefully constructed fortress, Latina, queer, and ambitious in a town that didn't always understand her. She'd fought hard to get here, through med school, through prejudice, through her own doubts. But tonight that fortress felt like it was crumbling. "I lost someone," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "A patient. I did everything I could, but..." She trailed off, her throat tightening. Riley didn't flinch. She set her coffee down and leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "That's heavy. I'm sorry." Her words were simple, but they carried a sincerity that caught Elena off guard. "It's part of the job," Elena said, trying to brush it off, but her voice cracked. "You get used to it." "Bullshit," Riley said gently, her eyes never leaving Elena's. "You don't get used to that. You just learn to carry it." Elena's breath hitched. No one had ever called her out like that, not her colleagues, not her family. Riley's words were like a lifeline, pulling her from the edge of her grief. They talked for hours, the hospital fading around them. Riley shared stories of her own growing up in Willow Creek, coming out as a lesbian in a town that whispered behind her back, finding solace in fixing things that were broken. Elena opened up about her own journey, her strict Catholic upbringing, the pressure to be perfect, the quiet ache of hiding who she loved. By the time the sun peeked through the break room window, Elena felt lighter, like she'd shed a layer of armor she hadn't realized she was wearing. Riley stood to leave, her toolbox slung over her shoulder. "See you around, Doc," Riley said with a crooked smile. "Don't let this place break you." Elena watched her go, her heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. She didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of something, a spark that would ignite a love story as messy and beautiful as the lives they were trying to piece together. Elena's days blurred into a cycle of shifts, charts, and sleepless nights, but Riley's words lingered like a melody she couldn't shake. She found herself looking for Riley around town, at the hardware store, the diner, even the hospital when maintenance calls came in. Willow Creek was small, but their paths didn't cross again for weeks, and Elena wondered if she'd imagined the connection that night. Then, one rainy afternoon, Elena's car broke down on the edge of town. She stood under an umbrella, cursing her luck, when a familiar pickup truck pulled up. Riley hopped out, her plaid shirt already damp, her grin as bright as ever. Need a hero, Doc? Riley called, shielding her eyes from the rain. Elena laughed despite herself. I need a mechanic, not a plumber. Lucky for you, I'm a woman of many talents, Riley said, popping the hood. As she worked, Elena watched, captivated by the ease of her movements, the way she hummed softly under her breath. You're good at this, Elena said, leaning against the car. Riley glanced up, her blue eyes catching the light. Fixing things is kind of my thing. Cars, pipes. Hearts, maybe. She winked and Elena's cheeks warmed. They spent the afternoon together, Riley towing Elena's car to a shop and insisting on buying her coffee at the diner afterward. Over greasy fries and lukewarm coffee, they talked again about dreams, fears, the weight of being different in a small town. Elena learned that Riley had lost her mother to cancer years ago, a wound that still shaped her. Riley learned that Elena hadn't spoken to her own family since coming out, a silence that haunted her. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, Riley walked Elena to her apartment. At the door, their hands brushed, and Elena felt a jolt like the world had shifted just slightly. Your trouble, Riley Carter, Elena said, her voice teasing but her eyes serious. Only the good kind, Riley replied, her smile soft. Get some rest, document. You're gonna need it. Elena closed the door, her heart racing. She didn't know what this was, friendship, attraction, or something deeper, but for the first time in years, she felt alive. The hospital became Elena's refuge and her prison. Her shifts stretched into endless hours, each one a battle against exhaustion and doubt. Yet, Riley's presence began to weave itself into her life like sunlight breaking through clouds. A month after the car breakdown, Riley started showing up at the hospital with excuses: a leaky faucet in the cafeteria, a clogged drain in the ER. Elena knew some of these calls were flimsy, but she didn't mind. Seeing Riley, even for a moment, was a lifeline. One evening, as Elena stitched up a patient's wound in the ER, Riley appeared in the doorway, her toolbox in hand. Got a sink acting up in the lounge, she said, but her eyes lingered on Elena, who was focused on her work. You're gonna have to wait, Elena said without looking up, her hand steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. Riley leaned against the doorframe, watching. You're kinda badass, you know that? Elena's lips twitched into a smile, but she kept her focus. Flattery won't fix the sink. When Elena finished, she found Riley in the lounge, tinkering with a pipe under the sink. The room was quiet, the hospital settling into its late-night rhythm. Elena sat on the counter, her legs dangling, watching Riley work. You ever think about doing something else? Elena asked. You're too smart to be fixing pipes forever. Riley slid out from under the sink, wiping her hands on her jeans. I like fixing things. It's honest work. Not everyone can say they save lives, document. Elena's smile faded. I don't always save them. Riley stood, stepping closer. You try. That's more than most people do. Their eyes locked, and the air between them thickened. Elena felt the pull, dangerous, exhilarating. She'd spent years building walls, keeping people at a distance. But Riley was different. She saw through the cracks in Elena's armor, and it terrified her. Riley, Elena started, but her voice faltered. Riley reached out, her hand hovering near Elena's. You don't have to say anything. I'm here. That night they walked through Willow Creek's quiet streets, sharing stories under the stars. Riley admitted she'd always wanted to travel, to see the world beyond their small town. Elena confessed her dream of opening a free clinic someday, a place where no one would be turned away. Their dreams felt big, impossible, but in that moment they seemed within reach. Their connection grew over weeks, stolen moments in the hospital, late-night coffee runs, quiet walks by the river. But Elena couldn't shake the fear gnawing at her. She'd been hurt before by her family's rejection, by a girlfriend who left when things got hard. Love for Elena was a risk she wasn't sure she could take. One night at a local bar, everything changed. Elena and Riley were sharing a booth, laughing over a shared plate of nachos, when a group of locals started whispering. Elena caught the words "dyke," unnatural, muttered just loud enough to sting. Riley's jaw tightened, but she didn't react. Elena, though, felt the old wounds reopen. She stood abruptly, her hands shaking. I need air. Outside in the cool night, Riley found her leaning against the wall, tears in her eyes. Hey, Riley said softly, stepping close. Those assholes don't get to define us. They're right though, Elena said, her voice breaking. I'm broken. I can't even fix myself, let alone anyone else. Riley took Elena's face in her hands, her touch gentle but firm. You're not broken. You're human. And you're the strongest person I know. Elena's breath caught. Riley's eyes were fierce, full of a sincerity that unraveled her defenses. Without thinking, Elena leaned in, and their lips met a soft, tentative kiss that exploded into something deeper. The world fell away, leaving only the warmth of Riley's touch, the steady beat of her heart. When they pulled back, Elena was trembling, but not from fear. For the first time, she felt whole. The kiss changed everything. Elena and Riley became inseparable, their lives intertwining like vines. They stole moments between Elena's shifts, breakfasts at the diner, late-night drives through the countryside, quiet evenings on Elena's couch, where Riley's head would rest in Elena's lap as they watched old movies. But love, even one as vibrant as theirs, wasn't without shadows. Elena's fears lingered, whispering that this happiness couldn't last. Riley, too, carried her own burdens. Her father, a gruff mechanic, had never accepted her sexuality, and his disapproval hung over her like a storm cloud. One crisp autumn day, Elena invited Riley to a hospital fundraiser, a rare chance to see each other dressed up. Elena wore a sleek black dress, her hair swept up, while Riley, in a tailored blazer and jeans, looked effortlessly charming. They danced under fairy lights, their laughter drowning out the whispers of curious onlookers. For a moment the world felt kind. But the night took a turn when Elena's attending physician, Dr. Harris, pulled her aside. Be careful, Marquez, he said, his tone clipped. This town talks. You don't want to jeopardize your career. Elena's stomach twisted. She'd worked too hard to let gossip derail her, but the warning stung. When she told Riley, expecting her to brush it off, Riley's face darkened. They'll always find something to say, Riley said, her voice low. But I'm not hiding who I am. Are you? The question hit Elena like a slap. She wanted to say no, to proclaim her love for Riley to the world, but fear choked her words. I can't lose everything I've built, she said finally. Riley's eyes softened, but there was pain there too. I get it. But I'm not gonna be your secret, Elena. The tension followed them home. For days they tiptoed around it, their conversations strained. Elena threw herself into work, taking extra shifts to avoid the ache in her chest. Riley, meanwhile, started taking jobs out of town, her absence a quiet protest. Then disaster struck. A fire broke out at the hospital during a late-night shift, a faulty wire sparking chaos. Elena was in the middle of a procedure when alarms blared. Smoke filled the halls and panic erupted. Elena stayed calm, guiding patients to safety, her training kicking in. But as she helped evacuate the pediatric ward, she heard a nurse shout that someone was trapped in the basement where the fire had started. Without thinking, Elena ran toward the stairwell. The smoke was thick, the heat suffocating. She found Riley there, of all people, trying to shut off the main water valve to prevent flooding from burst pipes. Riley, get out! Elena shouted, coughing as she grabbed her arm. Not yet, Riley said, her voice steady despite the chaos. If this valve doesn't close, the whole place could go under. They worked together, Elena holding a flashlight as Riley wrestled with the valve. The fire roared closer, the heat searing their skin. Just as the valve clicked shut, a beam overhead groaned, threatening to collapse. Elena grabbed Riley, pulling her toward the exit. They stumbled out into the night, coughing and gasping, as firefighters swarmed the building. In the chaos, Riley pulled Elena close, their foreheads touching. You could have died, Elena whispered, her voice trembling. So could you, Riley said, her eyes fierce. But you ran in anyway. That's who you are, Elena. You don't give up on people. In that moment, Elena knew she couldn't give up on Riley either. The fire had burned away her doubts, leaving only clarity. She loved Riley fiercely, unapologetically, and no fear, no gossip could change that. The fire left scars on the hospital, on the town, and on Elena and Riley's fragile relationship. The hospital was shut down for repairs, forcing Elena to take a temporary position at a clinic in a neighboring town. The distance, both physical and emotional, strained their bond. Riley threw herself into work, taking every plumbing job she could find. She missed Elena's laugh, her quiet strength, the way her eyes softened when they talked late into the night. But Riley couldn't shake the fear that Elena was still holding back, afraid to fully embrace their love. One evening, Riley found herself at Elena's apartment, uninvited but unable to stay away. Elena opened the door, her face weary from a long shift. "Riley," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I miss you," Riley said simply, her voice raw. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't." Elena let her in, and they sat on the couch, the silence heavy. "I'm scared," Elena admitted finally. "I've lost so much me family, my sense of home. If I lose you too." Riley took her hand, her thumb brushing over Elena's knuckles. "You won't lose me. But you have to let me in, Elena. All the way." Tears welled in Elena's eyes. She wanted to God. She wanted to, but the weight of her past, her fears held her back. "I don't know how," she whispered. Riley leaned closer, her voice steady. "You start by being honest. With me. With yourself." That night they talked until dawn, laying bare their fears and hopes. Elena spoke of her dreams for the Futuria Clinic, a life where she could be herself without shame. Riley shared her own Visiona home, a family, a life built on love, not judgment. Their love deepened, but the world wasn't done testing them. At the clinic, Elena faced whispers from colleagues, subtle jabs about her lifestyle. One day, a patient refused her care, citing her sinful relationship. The words cut deep, rekindling old wounds. When Elena told Riley, she expected anger, but Riley just pulled her close. "They don't get to decide your worth," Riley said. "You're a damn good doctor, and an even better person." Inspired by Riley's unwavering support, Elena decided to fight back. She proposed a community outreach program at the clinic, offering free health screenings to marginalized groups, including the LGBTQ+ community. It was a risk, but it felt right away to honor her truth and help others. Riley was by her side, helping organize the event, her practical skills complementing Elena's vision. The day of the screening, dozens showed up: queer kids, single parents, people who'd been turned away elsewhere. Elena worked tirelessly, her heart full, while Riley fixed a leaky sink in the clinic's bathroom, her presence a quiet anchor. As the day ended, a young trans teen approached Elena, tears in their eyes. "Thank you," they said. "I've never felt safe at a doctor's office before." Elena's throat tightened. She looked at Riley, who was watching from across the room, her smile proud. In that moment, Elena knew she'd found her purpose and her home. The community outreach program marked a turning point. Elena's confidence grew, her fears fading in the face of her impact. She and Riley moved in together, turning Elena's small apartment into a home filled with laughter, late-night talks, and the smell of Riley's terrible cooking. But life as always had one more test. Elena received a letter from her estranged mother, inviting her to a family gathering. The words were polite but distant, a fragile olive branch. Elena's first instinct was to ignore it. Hadn't spoken to her family in years, not since they'd called her love a sin. Riley, however, saw something else in the letter. "Maybe it's a chance," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Not for them but for you. To let go of the pain." Elena was torn. She wanted closure, but the thought of facing her family's judgment again made her stomach churn. Riley offered to go with her, a quiet promise to stand by her side. The drive to Elena's childhood home in Philadelphia was tense, the silence broken only by Riley's soft humming. When they arrived, Elena's mother greeted them stiffly, her eyes flickering over Riley with unease. The gathering was small, just Elena's parents and her older brother, but the air was thick with unspoken words. Dinner was a minefield. Elena's father barely spoke, his disapproval palpable. Her mother made small talk, but her questions felt like probes. Elena felt herself shrinking, the confident doctor replaced by the scared girl she'd once been. Then Riley spoke up. "Elena's doing incredible things," she said, her voice steady. "She's saving lives, helping people who've got nowhere else to turn. You should be proud." The table went silent. Elena's brother shifted uncomfortably, but her mother's eyes softened, just for a moment. "We didn't know," her mother said quietly. Elena took a deep breath, her hand finding Riley's under the table. "I'm not here to change your minds," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I just want you to see me. All of me." The conversation didn't fix everything. Her father remained distant, but her mother asked questions, tentative but genuine. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. On the drive home, Elena cried not from pain, but from release. Riley held her hand, her presence a steady anchor. "You were brave," Riley said. "You always are." Years later, Elena opened her free clinic in Willow Creek, a place where everyone was welcome. Riley was there, fixing pipes and building dreams alongside her. They faced challenges, prejudice, setbacks, the weight of their own pasts, but they faced them together. One evening, under the same street lamp where they'd first stood in the rain, Riley got down on one knee. "Elena Marquez," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You fixed my heart when I didn't even know it was broken. Will you marry me?" Elena's tears fell as she nodded, pulling Riley into her arms. They kissed, the world fading away, their love a beacon in the dark. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, built on sincerity, resilience, and the courage to love without fear. And in that small town under the vast Pennsylvania sky, they proved that even a broken heart could heal, one honest moment at a time. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.